Shocking truth revealed. How a 60-year-old janitor's hidden wisdom transformed an entire life. In the fading light of Westwood High, laughter and tears mingled in the air like whispers from ghosts. Mike, the school janitor, had seen it all. He worked tirelessly, sweeping away remnants of hope, heartbreak, and wild teenage dreams, never asking for a thank you, just happy to keep the place clean. But within him lay a hidden treasure, a wisdom shaped by the gravel of life's hardships. Day after day, he silently observed the chaos and clamor of students navigating their turbulent world, but one student caught his keen eye. Sarah. She was a bright star, bubbling with ambition, but her light dimmed under the weight of expectations from her wealthy parents. With scholarship deadlines looming, every detail felt magnified. Mike noticed the shadows beneath her eyes as she stayed late, poring over books, the fluorescent lights above flickering like her hope. He approached her one afternoon, broom in hand, a warm smile breaking the chill of silence. "You know, kid, the world can be heavy, but sometimes you've just got to lighten your load," he said, gesturing to the cluttered hallway. Those simple words resonated with her more than any motivational poster could. Their conversations blossomed in the janitor's closet, a sanctuary adorned with cleaning supplies and mops. Mike found joy in sharing stories of resilience, tales of perseverance and integrity. Sarah hung on to each word, feeling a newfound courage flicker within her. "You must live for yourself, not just for others' wishes," he advised, urging her to embrace her true self. This sparked something deep inside her, something she hadn't realized was missing. However, wisdom often walks a rocky road. Then came a moment that crashed down like thunder. A wealthy, privileged student, threatened by Sarah's rising confidence, falsely accused her of cheating, igniting a backlash that sent ripples through the school. The news spread like wildfire. Students whispered behind her back, while teachers glanced in disbelief. Sarah felt as though the very ground beneath her was crumbling. The pressures weighing on her heart became unbearable, causing her to think of conforming to protect herself. She faced a swirling storm of emotions, feeling loyalty to her friends but desperate to uphold the success expected of her. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let us continue. In the tides of turmoil, Mike remained Sarah's anchor, a beacon amid the storm. His quiet strength encouraged her to believe in her own truth. The confrontation that followed was electric, a collective gasp echoing through the hallways as students united. Teachers rallied behind her. In that pivotal moment of clarity, filled with tears and fierce determination, Sarah finally chose to stand tall, embracing her journey and redefining her understanding of success. With an unexpected act of bravery, she ignited a spark within the community, questioning not just privilege but the essence of authenticity, resilience, and hope. But as the dust settled, an unanswered question loomed. Would the truth hold strong against the very forces designed to stifle it? Would Mike's hidden wisdom finally shine through in a community that often overlooked the invaluable voice of its unsung heroes? As they faced the potential of new beginnings, it was evident that their fight was only just beginning. The days following the confrontation were nothing short of electric. Sarah felt a surge of hope coursing through her veins. Teachers who had once cast doubtful glances now approached her with encouragement, offering support in ways she never imagined. Empowered, she felt she could turn the tide. But whispers lingered as a constant reminder of her ordeal. The wealthy student, fueled by envy, would not let her shine so brightly without a fight. One chilly afternoon, as Sarah sat in the library buried in a sea of books, she felt the weight of the world heavy on her shoulders again. With deadlines creeping closer, the pressure intensified. That's when Mike walked in, a vision of calmness and reassurance. He approached her with a steaming cup of coffee, fixing her with a knowing smile. "Thought you could use this," he said, his eyes twinkling warmly. "Thanks, Mike," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Though she appreciated the gesture, she couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping through her fingers. Seeing the turmoil on her face, Mike leaned against the worn wooden table. "You know, kid, the world often feels like it's spinning too fast. But it's okay to pause and take a breath. It's okay to ask for help, he encouraged gently as if the words had unlocked a door. Sarah didn't just nod in response. She found herself spilling everything, the stress, the accusations, and the overwhelming fear of failure. What if I don't measure up? She confessed, her voice choking with emotion. What if they are right? Mike leaned in closer, his voice steady and filled with compassion. They're not right. You need to believe that in your heart. The only opinion that matters is the one you have of yourself. Trust in your hard work and remember, success isn't a straight path, it's the courage to keep going despite obstacles. His words hung in the air like songs from a distant past, so rich and full of promise. Encouraged, Sarah wiped the tears away and took a deep breath. She realized that her fight wasn't just her own. It was a fight for those who felt unheard and unseen. In the following days, she decided to take action. With Mike's wisdom resonating in her heart, she called for a meeting at the school assembly. The chatter in the cafeteria was palpable, students buzzing with curiosity. As Sarah took the stage, her heart raced yet felt strangely light. Today, I want to talk about authenticity, about being true to ourselves, she began, her voice steadying with every word. It's time we create an environment that encourages transparency and support instead of jealousy and fear. A hush enveloped the room, eyes wide as she continued. She shared her own story, how it felt to be targeted, but also how she found strength through love and understanding. By the end, applause erupted, vibrations of solidarity pulsating through the crowd. But as cheers of support rang out, the wealthy student sat in the corner, a storm brewing behind her eyes. She was far from finished. That moment Sarah thought she'd found her footing was only the quiet before the true storm. Would the courage Sarah discovered hold firm against growing jealousy? Would Mike's wisdom be enough to carry her through the inevitable battles that lay ahead? As the applause faded and uncertainty crept back in, the future loomed large, unanswered, and full of potential peril. The fight was only just beginning. Would they be ready for what came next? The following week felt like a whirlwind. Sarah dove deep into her classes, determined to keep her momentum. Teachers began asking for her input during discussions, and classmates sought her out for advice. For the first time she felt seen, not just as a survivor of whispered judgments, but as a leader. But every sunrise brought new tension, and shadows lingered in the hallways. The wealthy student, Jessica, remained silent. Her smoldering resentment was palpable. A heavy cloak draped over Sarah's newfound confidence. One afternoon, while Sarah was heading into the gym for basketball practice, she overheard two girls whispering in hushed tones. Can you believe she had the nerve to talk about authenticity? She's just trying to act like she's better than everyone else. The words jabbed at her heart like thorns. Had the assembly really changed anything? Or was this a storm brewing just beneath the surface? Sarah's pulse quickened as memories of her past taunted her. She had stood up only to be shot down. Would this time be different? Daydreams of failure floated in her mind, but she tried to shake them off. Practice began, and as she dribbled the ball with lightning speed, she poured her focus into the game. Yet even the court, usually her sanctuary, felt hostile. Each bounce echoed the complaints, the doubts spiraling around her. As the practice wrapped up, Mike waited near the bleachers. He had been her anchor, always ready with a smile or kind word. But today there was a concern shadowing his gaze. Hey, you alright? He asked as she walked off the court, her chest tight with unspoken fears. Do you think it matters? All this talk about being authentic? What if it's just noise? What if I can't change anything? The light in his eyes dimmed for just a moment. It matters, Sarah. You've already planted seeds with your words. It's not about changing minds overnight. It's about being brave enough to keep sowing them. Just watch, change takes time, but it will happen. The truth in his voice soothed her, and she felt a flicker of hope flicker back to life. On the bus ride home, though, doubt crept back in. That night, tossing and turning in bed, she came to the startling realization that she needed more than just words. She needed a plan. She needed allies. The next day, with excitement sprouting in her chest, she arranged a meeting with the student council. As she sat down in front of the panel of students, she knew this was a pivotal moment. She put her heart on the line, proposing a club dedicated to empathy and support, a safe place where everyone's voice could be heard, regardless of their status. But just as a smile began to creep across their faces, the door swung open. Jessica strolled in, her presence radiating confidence laced with malice. What was she doing there? The air grew thick with tension. Seriously, Sarah? You think a little club will erase your problems? You're missing the point, she sneered, every word dripping with scorn. The room fell silent, eyes darting between Sarah and Jessica. The promise of support now felt fragile, like a bubble ready to pop. Sarah took a deep breath, her heart racing, unsure if she could hold her ground. Would she stand tall against Jessica's intimidation? Or was this the moment everything would collapse? The stakes felt higher than ever, and the fight for authenticity felt like it was about to reach a boiling point. Could Sarah find the strength within herself to push forward? Or would she falter in the face of clear opposition? As the whispers swirled, an undeniable truth loomed. The real battle was just beginning. Would she be able to keep her vision alive? Sarah's heart raced as the silence in the room grew heavier. Jessica's smirk was infuriating, and it ignited a fire in Sarah that she hadn't expected. She looked around at her peers, waiting for someone to break the tension. But it felt like time had stopped, and all eyes remained glued to the unfolding drama. Jessica, Sarah finally spoke, her voice steadier than she felt. This isn't about erasing problems. It's about bringing people together. It's about understanding. Jessica rolled her eyes, the disdain clear. You think everyone is going to just join your little club and hold hands? People don't change overnight. You're just wasting your breath, she shot back. But Sarah sensed another layer underneath the bravado. This was about more than just her club. This was about the status quo Jessica was clinging to. Maybe you don't believe in change, but I do, Sarah replied, her pulse pounding in her ears. With every syllable she gathered more courage. We're all a little lost sometimes, and nobody should feel alone in this school. If we can create a space to listen, then maybe we'll start to change things. The students in the room shifted, and Sarah could see flickers of interest spark in their eyes. A couple nodded slightly, and the atmosphere began to soften. She felt hope rising again. But Jessica wasn't done. Fine, have your little club. But you know what? I'd love to see how you deal when it backfires, she taunted, her voice dripping with mockery. You'd be better off staying in your lane. It hit Sarah hard like a slap in the face. But instead of letting it take the wind out of her sails, something shifted. Jessica may have thrown out her threats like confetti, but they didn't stick. Let us make this a challenge then, Sarah said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her tone. Let us see how many people truly want to join us. If I can't make a difference, then I'll walk away. But if I can, maybe we can actually create something powerful together. Jessica's sneer faltered for a fraction of a second, and in that silence, the rest of the room buzzed with anticipation. A girl from the back, Brenda, piped up. I think it's a great idea. We could really use a space like that. Another voice chimed in. Yeah, I'm in. And just like that, Sarah found her allies surfacing among the crowd, unified against Jessica's negativity. Jessica's face reddened with disbelief. You don't really think this will work, do you? She spat. But the shift had begun, and sparks of courage were igniting among Sarah's classmates. Maybe you should try it before you knock it, Sarah said, her confidence growing. Who knows? You might learn something. The moment hung in the air, both parties maintaining their ground, the energy crackling with possibility. Sarah felt a swell of triumph. She was no longer just standing for herself. She was standing for every silent voice, every overlooked student. As the meeting wrapped up, Sarah could hardly contain her excitement. The smiles and whispers of support were a balm to her anxieties. She left the room with a sense of purpose she hadn't had in a long time. But just as she exited, she caught a glimpse of Jessica's furious expression, a storm brewing behind those carefully polished eyes. Was this victory only temporary? And what might Jessica do next to undermine her effort? The stakes had only gotten higher, and Sarah could feel the shadows gathering again. The real test was still ahead. Would her growing community be enough to withstand the storm that was coming? The next day at school, Sarah's heart felt lighter. She entered the hall with a new bounce in her step. The whispers about her club were radiating like ripples in a pond, and she couldn't help but smile at the scattering of nods as she passed by familiar faces. Students who had ignored her before now seemed to look at her with a flicker of hope. As she reached her locker, she spotted Brenda leaning against the wall, her sketchbook open. Hey Sarah. I've been thinking about ideas for our first meeting, Brenda said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. What if we invite people to share their stories? We could really get to know each other. I love that. Stories can connect us in ways we never imagine, Sarah replied, feeling the warmth of camaraderie swell between them. They spent a few moments brainstorming, their laughter cutting through the noise of gossiping students. It felt like a small victory, a tiny piece of the world aligning. But just then, a cold wave washed over Sarah. Jessica was on the other side of the hall, flanked by her loyal followers. They were whispering and casting sidelong glances in Sarah's direction. The laughter faded, and Sarah felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Are you ready for a fight? Because I am. Jessica's voice was sharp, audible even across the crowded hallway. A few students smirked, but the majority watched, their eyes flicking between the rival factions. Come on, Brenda said quietly, her enthusiasm dimming as she sensed the tension. Let us just ignore her. But Sarah felt a pull towards confrontation, an urge to set things right. Jessica, she called, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Jessica turned, surprise flickering across her face. What do you want, Sarah? Another heartfelt speech about how you're destined to change the world? The taunt cut deep, but Sarah pushed through. I want to start a conversation, Jess. An actual, real conversation. Are you in? Silence hung thick in the air. Some students leaned in, eager for the drama to unfold. Jessica tilted her head, the flicker of doubt momentarily visible. Oh please. You think people will care? They'll turn on you soon enough, just like they always do. With a surge of determination, Sarah countered, what if we made it so they couldn't? What if we band together instead? A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd, but Jessica remained stony-faced, her bravado faltering for just a fraction of a second. Sarah's heart raced as she realized this wasn't just a battle against Jessica. It was about every unvoiced feeling that echoed in the halls. I mean it, Jessica. Join us. Or at least try it once. It might do you some good to let others in. Jessica's face twitched with anger, but in that moment her expression shifted. Was it uncertainty? Fear of being excluded? Before she could respond, a shadow loomed behind her. An imposing figure with an air of authority. Mr. Adams, the janitor. Enough! He boomed, his voice low and commanding. The students fell silent, their attention snapping towards him. There are other ways to communicate beyond insults and taunts. Sarah's heart swelled with hope. If only they could take his advice. Mr. Adams continued, each of you has a story, but it takes honesty and courage to share it. It's up to you all to decide if you want to listen. His gaze landed on Sarah, and for a moment, she felt an unspoken bond. Jessica huffed, what does a janitor know about our struggles? Mr. Adams met her eyes. More than you think, child. Sometimes the wisdom of the overlooked carries the loudest truths. In the charged silence, Sarah felt the air change. An opportunity hung there, fragile yet potent. Could they rise above the noise? As Jessica's jaw tightened, Sarah's resolve only strengthened. This was just the beginning. What would happen when they confronted the real issues hidden beneath the surface? The next challenge loomed, and Sarah couldn't shake off the feeling that a confrontation was brewing. One that would force everyone to choose a side. Where would the truth lead them? The lunch bell rang, shattering the tension that hung in the hallway like a heavy fog. Students burst from classrooms, a chaotic stream of energy as they spilled into the cafeteria. Sarah's heart raced with anticipation. What if today was the day everything changed? Brenda slid into the seat across from Sarah, her enthusiasm returning with a vengeance. Did you see everyone's faces? You really put it out there, Sarah. Brenda's eyes gleamed, and it felt like the wrinkled paper of a once-forgotten drawing was coming back to life. I just wanted to get through to Jessica. We all have our stories, Sarah replied, her voice quieter than she would be liked. It was still about everyone and their experiences. It felt good, but would it reach Jessica? I think it did. If we keep this message alive at our meeting, something will shift, Brenda said, her words ringing with an infectious optimism. Yet as they made their way to the table and sat down, Sarah couldn't shake the unease curling in her stomach. Jessica wouldn't take this lightly. The cafeteria buzzed with chatter, but in the back of Sarah's mind, she felt the familiar sense of looming confrontation. Out of nowhere, Jessica's voice pierced through the noise. What's with all the chatter over here? Did your little club decide to cast a spell to make us all nice? The taunt was met by a wave of laughter from her entourage. Another chill spread through the room as eyes shifted to Sarah and Brenda. Could she let Jessica's mocking comments shatter their spirit? Jessica, we're not trying to cast spells, Sarah replied, her voice more confident than she felt. We're starting a conversation. We're inviting everyone to talk about their experiences, and that includes you. The unexpected hush may have surprised Sarah just as much as it did Jessica. A few heads turned and murmurs began like a rising tide. Why would I waste my time sharing with you losers? Jessica shot back, her bravado wavering. As maybe, just maybe, you have a story worth telling too, Brenda responded, her voice steady. The courage in her words seemed to ignite the space between them. For a moment, Jessica's anger flickered. Uncertainty flashed across her features. But the moment was fleeting. It's pathetic that you think talking about feelings will make everything better, she spat, her mask returning in full force. No one wants to hear your sob stories. A flush of hurt mixed with anger bubbled inside Sarah. But she felt a little something stirring within her. Something courageous and unyielding. I'm not asking you to be soft. I'm asking you to be real, she shot back. We all have walls. But what if breaking them down could bring us closer? A heavy silence lay across the cafeteria. Somewhere someone whispered, she's right. Sarah's heart flickered with a tiny spark of hope. Could this spark into something more? Jessica looked taken aback. The cracks in her armor showed for just a moment before she regained her composure. Whatever, she muttered, tossing her hair back dismissively. But something had shifted. The audience was no longer on her side. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, and students began to rise. Sarah clutched her tray, contemplating what would unfold in the next meeting. So are we really doing this? She asked Brenda, needing confirmation that they were on the same page. We are, Brenda affirmed, determination coloring her voice. We'll make it work. As they walked out, Sarah noticed the murmurs persisting. The hall was alive with energy, and she hoped it would continue to grow. But as they turned a corner, Jessica and her crew fell back into step beside them. You think just because you had a few brave moments that people will stop hating you? You're ridiculous, Jessica growled, her voice low enough for only Sarah and Brenda to hear. That's when Sarah knew the fight was far from over. What lay ahead was uncharted territory, laced with courage and uncertainty. How would Sarah and Brenda handle the brimming emotions as they prepared for their first meeting? Would they manage to unite the crowd, or would discord reign once more? The next day arrived with a weight of expectation. The morning seemed longer, banners of anxiety fluttering in Sarah's heart. She and Brenda arrived early to set up for the meeting, but the air crackled with doubt. Would anyone show up? Would Jessica stir up trouble again? Brenda pushed a stray chair into place, her determination unwavering. Just think about it, Sarah. This is our chance. People need to know they're not alone. Her voice held an edge of excitement, yet Sarah could still feel a shadow lingering behind her smile. Yeah, but what if Jessica brings her squad? Sarah mumbled, her mind racing to recollect the recent comments flung at them like arrows. Would their bravery only set them up for more attacks? Brenda's eyes met hers, soft yet full of fire. Then we handle it together. Just remember, we're not just standing up for ourselves, we're speaking for everyone who feels like they don't have a voice. Her conviction sparked something inside Sarah. They weren't just fighting for themselves, they were igniting a flame for their peers, for the kids who spent lunch in the corners. It was a realization woven from threads of conviction and hope. More students began trickling in, curiosity pulling them away from the usual noise of the cafeteria. Some wore skeptical expressions. Others looked intrigued. Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken, her palms sweaty. She took a deep breath and wiped her hands on her jeans. This was bigger than them, and she couldn't drown in fear now. As the meeting began, Sarah felt Brenda's reassuring presence beside her. We just have to share our truth, Brenda whispered, squeezing Sarah's arm. That small gesture reminded Sarah of their shared courage. One by one, students stood to speak, some hesitantly, others boldly. They shared stories about their struggles, heartaches, and dreams. The air lightened, filled with voices that had often gone unheard. Laughter mixed with tears, releasing the tension that had saturated the room. It was a kaleidoscope of emotion painting the walls brighter than dull browns and grays. Then, just as Sarah felt buoyed by positivity, the atmosphere shifted. Jessica strode in, flanked by her crew like storm clouds rolling over a sunny day. "What's going on?" she questioned, her sarcasm thinly veiling annoyance. The energy in the room flickered as eyes darted toward her, and Sarah's stomach knotted. Brenda started, confidence unyielding. "We're just sharing our stories. Right. Like that is supposed to help anyone." Jessica's voice dripped with scorn, but Sarah noticed a hint of tension in her posture. Maybe, just maybe, Jessica was feeling threatened by their unity. Why not give it a try? Sarah couldn't help herself. She felt the words tumble out like confetti. "You might be surprised at what you discover about yourself." The room held its collective breath. Could they really push back this time? Would Jessica back down? The look on Jessica's face was unreadable, a mixture of confusion and anger swirling beneath her surface. For a moment she seemed almost human, caught in the magnitude of vulnerability that hung in the air. "This is lame," she finally snapped, but her voice lacked its usual bite. A few students murmured in agreement, her grip on the room loosening. "Then why come here?" One brave voice from the back called out, causing a ripple of murmurs. Jessica rolled her eyes, but the discomfort was evident. She hesitated. The cracks in her facade widened, and for the first time it appeared she didn't have the power of the crowd behind her. This could be the moment everything changed. Sarah's heart pounded. She felt the slightest flicker of hope breaking through apprehension. Just then Jessica locked eyes with Sarah. Was it a glare or a plea? Sarah couldn't tell. "Next week," Jessica finally announced with a false bravado. "You'll see how stupid this all is." But the threads of confidence in her words felt fragile, as if the facade could shatter at any moment. As she turned to leave, students began to converse among themselves, and the tension slowly melted away. Brenda turned to Sarah, beaming. "Did you see that?" She is scared. "We're making a difference." But deep down, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the calm before a bigger storm. How would they prepare to navigate the chaos that might follow Jessica's threat? What truths were hiding in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered when the storm finally broke? The meeting fizzled into a buzz of excitement, but Sarah's heart still raced. Brenda's smile was infectious, but in the back of Sarah's mind, uncertainty lingered. Could they really face what was coming? The chatter of students filled the cafeteria, a blend of relief and curiosity. Some students approached them, offering words of encouragement, but Jessica's harsh words echoed like a warning bell. Next week the phrase played on loop in Sarah's mind. Was this a mere bluff? Or did Jessica have something more in store? "Hey, do you think we should plan something for next week?" Brenda asked, breaking through Sarah's thoughts. She was drawing up ideas on a napkin, her brow furrowed in concentration. "What if we have some kind of rally?" Sarah proposed hesitantly. It felt big, daunting. The idea of gathering everyone again sent a mix of exhilaration and dread through her. "We could invite a speaker or something." Brenda's eyes lit up, and Sarah felt a rush of eagerness. "That's perfect. Let us make sure we get as many people as we can." She couldn't hide her excitement, and soon, that energy spilled into more planning. They tossed around ideas, gathering more students, and the initial anxiety of not being heard transformed into hopeful sparks igniting among the crowd. Time zipped by as students joined in, voices overlapping as plans took shape. Posters were decided upon, and someone suggested a catchy slogan like "Your voice matters," which galvanized the whole group. The cafeteria turned into a hive of activity, laughter, and voices layered over one another. Yet, in the corner of the room, Sarah noticed a small group whispering among themselves. Jessica's friends. Would they just sit back and let this unfold? A voice broke through her swirling thoughts. "Hey, Sarah." It was Mike, one of the guys who had shared a story earlier. He approached her, eyes bright with enthusiasm. "I love what you guys are doing. I'll help with anything you need." "Really?" Sarah felt hope bloom. "We do love your help. We need as many voices as possible out there." As they brainstormed further, a sense of camaraderie spread. This was not just about standing up against Jessica anymore. It was about finding unity in their differences. Each story shared was like a thread weaving together a stronger fabric from those once seen as outcasts. But while the newfound energy flowed, a shadow still lingered. In the back of Sarah's mind, a worry gnawed at her. Even if they rallied together, would it be enough if Jessica decided to fight back harder? When the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, students began filtering out, their spirits high. Brenda turned to Sarah, a mixture of determination and urgency in her gaze. Next week is going to be huge, right? We have to keep the momentum going. As they stepped into the hallway, Sarah caught sight of Jessica lurking a few lockers down. An icy thrill ran through her. The girl was smirking but turned away just before their eyes met. "Let us keep our focus on the rally," Sarah whispered under her breath. But as they turned to leave, both Jessica and her friends erupted into laughter. It sliced through the buzz of hope swirling in Sarah's heart, leaving behind a chilling reminder that their fight was far from over. Would their rally really bring everyone together? What if Jessica plotted something worse than before? The tension tightened around her, sending a rush of anxiety racing through her veins. Just then, Sarah spotted a familiar face, a janitor she often saw sweeping the halls. Today he was watching the kids with a contemplative smile. His demeanor seemed different. Why was he lingering? As she turned to Brenda, Sarah could sense something important unfolding. The old man caught Sarah's eye, and it felt oddly significant. Could he have insight into the situation that could help her? What hidden wisdom might he possess that could change everything? Sarah's heart thudded in her chest as she hesitated, one foot planted in uncertainty while the other ached to approach the janitor. His eyes were keen, almost glimmering with a knowing light. She leaned closer to Brenda, her curiosity piqued. "Do you see him? That janitor?" Sarah whispered. "I feel like he is trying to tell us something." Brenda looked where Sarah pointed. "You mean Mr. Jenkins? He has been here forever. Minds his own business mostly. But there's something about the way he is looking at us." Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was more than serendipity. It felt like fate nudging her in a direction she needed to explore. "Let's go talk to him," Brenda suggested. And despite her own lingering doubts, Sarah nodded. As they approached, Mr. Jenkins straightened. "Looks like you young folks are brewing up something big. I can feel the energy. Those smiles aren't just for show, huh?" Sarah laughed nervously. "Well, we're trying to organize a rally for next week. To stand up against bullying at our school, it's a lot." He nodded slowly, his face serious but warm. "I see. You're standing up against something that feels bigger than you, huh? You have to remember, strength doesn't always come from the crowd. Sometimes it comes from within." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, intrigued despite the hustle and bustle around them. "Every battle has a lesson," Mr. Jenkins replied. His voice lowered as if sharing a secret. "You don't just confront the enemy. You confront yourself. Know your strength and know your worth. When the time comes, your courage will dictate the outcome, not the crowd." Sarah felt a rush of emotion. His words resonated deeply, and it was as though he could see right through her anxieties. "But what if it's not enough?" she questioned, fear creeping back into her voice. "Enough? Enough for what?" He replied gently. "Enough to silence others? Enough to fit in? Or enough to be proud of who you are?" There is no clear answer, but if you're true to yourselves, that's where your real strength lies. She pondered his words, feeling a strange mixture of calm and intensity. What if she was measuring their fight based on the wrong metrics? "Thank you," Sarah said finally, her breath steadying. "That really helps." As they turned to go, Brenda looked back at him, a bright smile on her face. "We'll make you proud, Mr. Jenkins." "I believe it's the other way around," he replied with a warm chuckle, eyes twinkling with hope. They walked back into the chaos of the hallway, but Sarah felt different light, almost as if a weight had been lifted. They were united not just in purpose but in something deeper. Suddenly, a loud commotion erupted at the entrance. Sarah turned her head sharply. Jessica stood surrounded by her friends, waving something above her head with a triumphant grin. "Looks like some people have decided to show their true colors." The words carried across the hall, echoing with mocking laughter. Brenda clenched her fists, her eyes narrowing. What is she doing now? Sarah felt her heart race again, that familiar spiral of dread emerging. Everything they had built now hovered on the brink of disaster. With that laughter ringing in her ears, a seed of doubt blossomed. Would Jessica intentionally strike harder now that the rally was on the horizon? What did Jessica have planned? And would Sarah's newfound strength be enough to stand tall? As the laughter roared around them, she knew one thing for certain: the next week was not just a rally, it was a coming storm. Would their courage weather it? The day of the rally dawned bright and clear, but inside Sarah bubbled with uncertainty. The once optimistic buzz that had filled the school had shifted, as whispers of doubt lingered like shadows. Yet, as lunch approached, the cafeteria filled with an unexpected energy. Students huddled together, smiles mingling with uncertainty. Everyone was eager to take part, yet tightened by the tension of anticipation. Brenda stood next to Sarah, her hands fidgeting with a clipboard. "Can you believe how many showed up? This is amazing," she exclaimed, her enthusiasm contagious. Sarah nodded, feeling a flicker of hope ignite in her heart. As the time for speeches approached, Sarah's pulse quickened. She felt the weight of her peers on her shoulders like a heavy backpack. They were looking to her, and it was time to share not just her story, but theirs as well, their hopes, their fears. Nearby, Jessica lingered, accompanied by her crew. Her smug expression sent chills down Sarah's spine. "You really think this is going to matter?" she called over, her voice dripping with disdain. All these words won't change a thing. But there was a new strength inside Sarah, one that had bloomed since her conversation with Mr. Jenkins. "You may not think it matters, Jessica," she shouted back, surprising herself with the firmness of her own voice. "But it does. It matters to all of us here." The crowd fell silent, the attention shifting between Sarah and Jessica. In that moment, vulnerability and defiance danced together in the charged air. As Sarah looked out at her classmates, their faces reflected the uncertainty and courage that filled the room. "Today, we're not just sharing our stories. We're building a community where everyone can be heard," Sarah declared, her heart racing. "This is a step towards understanding, compassion, and truth." The murmurs of agreement swelled around her. Brenda stepped forward, her voice strong. "We've all faced our own battles, but together we can change the tune of our school. We can fill the halls with kindness instead of cruelty." As the applause echoed, Sarah felt a weight lift. She glanced sideways at Jessica, her expression slightly less certain. This wasn't just a challenge, it was an opportunity for change. Then it happened in the back of the cafeteria. A boy nervously raised his hand, standing to share his own experience of feeling like an outsider. His story echoed warmly, weaving connections among their classmates. Another student followed suit, then another, until a chorus of voices filled the room. The atmosphere transformed from tension to unity, each confession breaking down walls of silence and fear. Jessica's facade began to crack. Her expression transformed from mockery to contemplation. The crowd rallied behind Sarah and Brenda, their words resonating like a powerful anthem, and she felt a rising tide of solidarity that pushed against the very foundation of reputation and privilege. As the rally continued, Sarah regained her footing. The fear that had once plagued her morphed into passion, burning brightly with every person who stepped forward to share their truth. "This is not just a rally. It's a revolution," she proclaimed, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We're planting seeds for a brighter future." Out of nowhere, Jessica stood up to speak. The cafeteria quieted as all eyes turned to her, a sudden longing for clarity in every gaze. I want to know what you all are feeling," she admitted, a tremor in her voice. The tension shifted yet again. "How can we make it better?" The silence that followed was heavy, but within seconds voices filled the void. Students began to offer insights, suggestions flowing like water. The discussion blossomed into unexpected warmth, hearts opening to one another. In that moment, a wave of change swept over the cafeteria. Jessica's mask of disregard cracked wide open, and vulnerability seeped through. As students shared their truths, the barriers erected between them began to crumble. Sarah caught Brenda's eye, both of them brimming with joy. They had ignited a fire that spread far beyond their aspirations. As the rally concluded, applause rang out, echoing off the walls. Cheers erupted, and for the first time, Sarah felt free not just from fear or expectation, but from labels imposed by others. She was not defined merely by her challenges. She had woven a tapestry of resilience from pain and hope that enveloped her true self. After everyone began to disperse, Sarah caught Jessica's eye once more, this time with a flicker of understanding between them. The storm had passed, unveiling a clearer sky. Perhaps this was just the beginning, a stepping stone toward growth and acceptance. Maybe they could learn side by side. As she stepped outside, sunlight warmed her face, and laughter echoed around her. The heaviness in her heart lightened. In a world that sometimes felt daunting, hope soared like a bird released from its cage. This was the moment Sarah realized. Strength lies not just in the crowd or the accolades but within the courage to stand true to oneself. And with the lessons learned in the heart of their school, she knew they could weather any storm to come. As the sun dipped lower, Sarah breathed deeply, a smile beaming across her face. Together they could change the narrative not just of the school but of each other's lives. And isn't that the beauty of connection, after all? Now, as this incredible journey wraps up, I have to urge you. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories of hope and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support for what truly matters here. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this empowering ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of helping the channel grow. Your actions can inspire change.